Jillian Michaels, welcome to the show. You know we got to talk about what happened.
Where's your proof that $150 million was offered from Bibi Netanyahu?
No, I'm referring.
Where is the proof?
Please do not get angry.
No, because I didn't want to cover this, and you guys insisted. And I
Because
told
that's what
you,
the
you cover this shit,
talking
I'm going to
about.
rip you apart.
Little did we know behind the scenes,
I don't
there
know
was a
how
lot
every
of pressure
show
toward
ends up being
Netanyahu.
about how do we bash Israel. This is not for me. I am not interested in this.
Okay,
I love
I
you
know.
guys.
I know.
I'm sorry.
Let's be good.
I
Let's
have
be good about
zero
precious
interest.
Israel.
I brought Anna Kasparian onto the show. I think she's a very talented journalist. I think she has been increasingly hostile and in some cases a little bit more unhinged when it comes to topics that involve Israel.
I'm not trying to bash Anna because I don't know her. I despise some of the stuff she said about Israel. However, it seems that people, they leverage some of these conversations to get to what they really want to talk about. You know, a lot of people say, well, I'm not saying Israel did it, but everything they talk about leads to Israel being a part of it.
I said, I think these narratives are dangerous. Obviously, under the pretense you guys don't want that, I think it could be inadvertent. I think it's irresponsible. I don't want to do this. It's not news. I get railroaded and it's like, no, you say that. And Anna says, to her credit, there is no evidence for this. Amy says, I don't believe this. And I said, then why are we covering this? I have the text messages, by the way. Should any one of them want to fire back and claim it's not true, I have all of the messages. I have the receipts.
All right, Jillian Michaels, welcome to the show. You know we got to talk about what happened. I think it was yesterday that...
2 days ago, actually.
Was it 2 days ago?
It was 2 days ago, yes. But by the way, thank you for having me. I've been watching you for about 5 years. I'm really excited to be with you. Yeah, I think you're great.
Thank you so much. I admire what you do. I've seen you more recently, and I was like, I have to interview this woman. She is amazing. She's a firestorm. And then yesterday, and it's funny because we had you come to the show before, but then we saw what happened a couple of days ago yesterday, and I was like, this is perfect timing because I want you to explain the backstory of all of that, because some people are cutting clips and they see you walk off the stage and they go, Jillian, rage quits on the show. And I could see at the beginning of the show, you said, I told you guys I didn't want to talk about this. So can you kind of explain how it started and what made you so frustrated that you said, look, I can't sit here and do this with you guys?
Okay, there's a lot of lead up to it. So bear with me and I'll try to be concise. I brought Anna Kasparian onto the show. I made the case for her with PBD. I think she's a very talented journalist. I think she has been increasingly hostile and in some cases a little bit more unhinged when it comes to topics that involve Israel. I appreciate a healthy criticism of both sides. I have engaged in dialogue with experts on both sides. I've spoken to everyone from having her on my show, Dave Smith on my show, Dr. Gad Saad, Batya Ungar Sargon. I mean, both sides. And it is an interview. It is not a debate. I think the vast majority of us are not really qualified to be experts on this subject matter. So as I become increasingly uncomfortable with regard to her level of hostility on the subject matter, I wanted to tone down the rhetoric on our show. This is our show. And PBD basically said to me, you're the point guard, you're the tip of the spear, you're in charge, right? Everybody has their own platform. Sure, freedom of speech, 100%. It doesn't mean I have to participate in it. And it doesn't mean you don't respect and appreciate my boundaries. And it doesn't mean you mislead me, in particular with regard to which direction you're planning on going here. And what I mean by that is I had begun to say, I would like to back off the Israel topics for a while. Every single show, for the most part, was like, let's talk about how awful Israel is. Let's talk about how awful Israel is. I'm not an expert. There's no one there to push back. You weren't there to push back. Batya wasn't there to push back. Coleman Hughes wasn't there to push back. There's nobody on the other side presenting a fair case. And I said, you know what, guys, let's taper off this. We didn't taper off of it. The night before, I see the segment about Tyler Robinson that was meant to discuss some of the conspiracy theories, in particular, dismantling and his gun in a certain amount of time, this man in the crowd that I believe had been seen in 9/11, how bizarre his texts were between himself and his lover. And I was like, okay, sure. Yep, you guys want to go for it. As I go into the main document to write out the skeleton for the show, I see that Israel has been included. And I say, guys, this was covered a week ago. There's no evidence for this whatsoever. It's the first night of Rosh Hashanah. I mean, we just buried this man. This is kind of a gross narrative. And I think it's dangerous. I think it is completely unfounded. If anything, his business partner and best friend just came out and said, like, no evidence of this. Dave Smith, for goodness sake, was like, if anybody's going to say there's no evidence of that, like there's no evidence of this. Bill Ackman came out with receipts. It's been, in my opinion, relatively debunked. There's far more evidence to suggest it is a farce, right? And no evidence to suggest that there's merit. And I said, I think these narratives are dangerous. And I think that they stoke anti-Semitism. Obviously, under the pretense you guys don't want that. I think it could be inadvertent. I think it's irresponsible. I don't want to do this. It's not news. I get railroaded, and it's like, no. People are talking about this, but by all means, you say that. And Anna says, to her credit, there is no evidence for this. Amy says, I don't believe this. And I said, then why are we covering this if there's no evidence and you don't believe it? Lindy had yet to weigh in on that chain. I have the text messages, by the way. Should any one of them want to fire back and claim it's not true, I have all of the messages. I have the receipts. So they're like, well, you because everyone's talking about it. So you could just say there's no evidence. I'm thinking, all right, we're all at least, thank God, on the same page. So I guess we're going into this to try to dispel this. Amy then begins her segment and she's presenting evidence for it and zero evidence against it. So now I'm like, wait a second, hold on, what is happening here? And I start to say, you've neglected to mention this, you neglected to mention that. And her and Lindy Lee began fighting again for the case that Israel is responsible. And now I'm saying, what evidence do you have of this? You haven't presented evidence that at Blumenthal, I believe his name was, that the journalist who claimed Israel offered Charlie $150 million, that this guy's linked to or has been arguably compromised or taken payments from Iran and Qatar to write for those types of like Al Jazeera, so on and so forth. You didn't present that part. You haven't presented any credible evidence. Lindy tries to make the case that this guy Blumenthal is the real deal, and now my head's blowing off. I'm like with shock. I'm like, wait a minute, what are you doing right now? What are you doing? And she's the one that had been sending me different posts that Anna had been making that she was becoming increasingly concerned about. And she's like, Jill, this is concerning. One in particular is where Anna says, you think you're the chosen people, but you behave like demons. Mm-hmm. So we're all a little bit like, okay, this is concerning. How do we dial down that rhetoric on our show? So I'm thinking, Lindy, I was shocked when she tried to start making the case that Israel was behind it. Amy then turns around and I'm like, what is your source of credible evidence? Candace Owens. Okay. I like Candace. I've had conversations with her, but that's not a source. That is not a credible source. Cite proof. Give me proof. That's Candace's opinion. If Candace is saying that, what's her source then? Go to her source. At that point, I'm completely confounded because it's like I got railroaded into the segment that I thought was disrespectful and irresponsible and quite honestly dangerous. You want to criticize the government of Israel. You want to criticize Netanyahu. As mentioned, I've sat through many of those conversations. I'm not qualified to engage in those conversations. You want to do that? Go ahead. This is an unfounded conspiracy theory that we've all agreed on is a week old and unfounded. So now you're trying to present evidence that it's true. And I'm really upset now because I'm responsible for this. This is not someone else's platform. I'm responsible for this platform. which means that I co-sign this segment. Anna then turns around and says, yeah, there's no evidence for this. And I'm thinking, well, thank God, dude. What took you so long? We've been fighting about this, And then she goes, but Netanyahu is a scumbag and he did this and he responded this way. And immediately we found a way to go from burying Charlie Kirk to bashing Israel. And at that point, I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't. You guys can do whatever you want, say whatever you want by all means, but it doesn't mean I have to participate. I'm not participating.
Was PBD upset with you about that segment? Because I'm pretty sure it went a little viral.
PBD said to me, he's like, why didn't you come to me sooner? And I said, boss, I was talking to the showrunner. I had kind of run it up the food chain of command. And they all agreed with me. Yep, we're going to tone this down. Yep, let's move away from Israel. Yep. But yet nobody was actually reining her in. And when I tried to rein her in, I would get railroaded and then assured, like, don't worry, though, we're not going to present it this way. And so his argument was, this is your fault. You should have come to me and I would have resolved this in 24 hours. I said, I apologize. I should have come to you. But nevertheless, I still don't have to participate.
Right.
Say what you want. I do not have to participate. I'm not going to have that on my conscience. I'm not. I think it's irresponsible and I think it's dangerous.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that I don't know, for whatever reason, people have this hatred towards Israel that's rooted in almost their subconscious mind. Because although a person says, we know people have been talking about it, is no facts, then that means you shouldn't talk about it. It's pointless to bring up something that has been debunked or that there's no evidence of. Because to be honest, and I'm not trying to bash Anna because I don't know her. I despise some of the stuff she said about Israel. However, it seems that people, they leverage some of these conversations to get to what they really want to talk about. A lot of people say, well, I'm not saying Israel did it, but everything they talk about leads to Israel being a part of it. Because her bringing up Netanyahu, which was when Charlie got killed. This was weeks ago.
I know. That's what I said.
And the problem is, when it comes to some of these things, in my opinion, is that I think people don't act in a good faith. I don't personally know Benjamin Netanyahu. I interviewed him one time. I don't know this guy. But to think that it's nefarious at face without putting any other objective reasoning behind it, I think it's malicious. Because when I watched Benjamin Netanyahu say what he had to say, I didn't think it had anything to do with politics. He had actually had a conversation on the phone with Charlie. Whichever way that conversation went, he's on a phone with Charlie. So that means he know him well enough to communicate with him on the phone. Charlie sent him an email. He's been to Israel multiple times. Like, it's only fitting that a Jewish person whom Charlie loved, at least he loved the country and what they stood for, to give condolences to Charlie. And that's what he did. He said, it's a great man. He's honorable. And people turn that into something crazy is bizarre to me.
Honestly, if you want to do that, by all means do it. Yeah. But there was never discussed, and I don't want to do it on a platform that I'm participating on. We had just done a segment 2 weeks prior, I believe, where Anna tried to make a connection between 9/11 and Israel. And the guest was a bit thrown off. I was really thrown off. And I said again, like, we gotta, like, this, okay, let's.
Are you going to be responsible for, are you technically still responsible for who comes on the show and who's not? Is she a permanent part of the show, or she's just kind of a contributing guest?
I actually got her the job. I got her the job. PBD was like, you wanted me to hire Anna. I hired Anna. And the thing is, I think Anna is a great journalist. I think she's intelligent. I think, in my opinion, she has gone down a very dark rabbit hole when it comes to Israel. And I feel like right now, that's somehow all she can see. It's like all roads lead back to Israel, every topic, Israel, everything, Israel, 9/11, Israel, Charlie Kirk's death. Somehow I find a way to go back to, I hate Netanyahu. I'm like, This is for you on your platform. I am not comfortable with this at this point because it's no longer being presented reasonably. It's no longer being presented with both sides for people to make the right decisions. There's no one there to push back on her. No one is qualified. They really aren't. You've studied this. Leland Vittert studied this. Batya Ungar-Sargon studied this. Dr. Gad Saad, Ben Shapiro. None of those people are there to push back on her. And for me, this is now you want to cover this. I get it. I've sat through all of it numerous times. But when you start focusing on unfounded conspiracy theories, just because, why would you do that? And that's what I said. I'm like, why would you guys do this? Like, why are you doing this?
Yeah, I think it troubles the mind. I think it's spiritual. Some people may want to say it's not. I do honestly think when people go down this path of finding themselves hating Israel so much, I think, this is my personal opinion, that God opens them up to what we call a reprobate mind, which they become consumed and they can't think of anything else but this rabbit hole about Israel. And then they begin to develop hatred. And then the hatred overtakes every other aspect of their lives. Because I've seen Anna on when she was on the Young Turks, and I despise the Young Turks, but at least I like the fact that she had an opinion and forceful opinion with conviction. I always respect people that do, even if I don't agree with them. I think Chank was a little more emotional. She kind of got emotional towards the end, but at least she would come out and say, this is what I feel, and this is what I loved her passion. But it seems that when people go down that rabbit hole of hating Jews, they know they lose the passion for the variety of topics that they would express, and they start just falling into this. I know people, and I don't want to say nobody's name, but I have seen people that I know and trust that used to have a real diverse perspective, and literally every single show that this person has produced has been about Israel. I literally would watch the show because I love this person and I think the person has an awesome show. And I would watch the show and it'll be about a train crash or something and some news. And I'm like, oh, that's crazy. That's a crazy train crash. And then it'll go into Israel. And
That's
then Israel.
exactly what happened.
It's like you could be talking about a pregnancy center. And then eventually Netanyahu did something. And it's like, it's very troubling. But to go back to your show and some of the things that you like to talk about, obviously outside of Israel, I think I can get.
I don't even like to talk about Israel because I am not an expert on it. I will interview people about it. I think that's different, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so
I'm not
what's
talking,
your connection?
I'm seeking to learn.
What's your connection ethnically to Israel? Are you connected at all to Israel, or
I'm,
not Israel, but like are you
Yeah.
connected to the Jewish state or people? Or I saw some letters on your arm here. Is that Arabic?
They're Arabic. Yeah, I'm actually both. I'm half Arab on my father's side, and I'm a Russian Jew on my mother's side. When I tell you it's a complex topic that goes back thousands of years, it is a complex topic that goes back thousands of years. Atrocities have occurred unilaterally. And when you're only hearing one side of the conversation, that's alarming. Like, where is your outrage? Where is the segment about the Israeli hostage who's completely emaciated digging his own grave? I want to hear the horror or what happens when the Coptic people are being killed, the Christians are being killed, the Druze are being killed. Where's the outrage there? So when I start to feel like, okay, this is no longer losing an element of neutrality with regard to facts. I appreciate opinion, but you have to present all of the facts. I know enough to know that's not happening in many of these segments, in particular, the one that I had begun to unwillingly participate in. And that is why I was like, I am not doing this today.
No, and I don't blame you. There's a couple other things I want to talk to you about,
Of
and one is
course.
being the conspiracies, because I know you guys didn't have a chance to address those conspiracies. But what are your thoughts of the conspiracies? And then I also want to talk about other things that's going on in the country. You know, the
Yeah.
leftist mania that's going on. They had a shooting of a guy who sniped at the ICE facility,
ICE.
and
Yeah.
he ended up killing detainees. He didn't kill anybody in ICE. He just killed detainees, which is, I guess, the opposite of what he was trying to accomplish. But what are your thoughts on the conspiracies around Charlie's death? Because I've seen a lot out there. Did the shooter do it? It's a lot of misinformation because people think, and what I was told is, and I didn't see the press conference, but what people were saying is that the FBI came back and corrected the record and saying they don't believe he broke down the gun and rebuilt it back together. They came and clarified and said he never did that. And so,
Yeah.
what is your thoughts on some of these conspiracy theories that bother you the most?
To be honest, Brandon, I don't really deal in conspiracy theories unless I think they're not a conspiracy theory. And what
Mm.
I mean by that is if there's something related to COVID and there's a trail, let's say back to Bill Gates, right? The Virality Project that he funded and utilized to shut down people's social media and silence vaccine dissenters, which I'm actually not an anti vaxxer, another nuanced conversation, but it starts as a conspiracy theory. Fauci's behind this, that, the other. When I start to see evidence that, wait a minute, did he sign that grant for EcoHealth Alliance, who then gave the money to Wuhan? When there's dots connecting, now you've got my attention because maybe it's not a conspiracy theory. I generally wait and sit back and see where these things go. And when there's credible evidence, now you've got my attention and I want to understand it. What are we covering up? What are we hiding? Epstein, release the files, right? You give me something that has a foundation, you'll catch me there. It starts as a conspiracy. When you've got some real facts behind it, now you've got my interest. To be honest with you, this could make perfect sense on its face. You got a kid that is clearly Antifa, who his parents say was radicalized by the left. He has a trans lover who had a deeply disturbed background that's also a furry. I mean, it does, like I've just said, like kind of adds up. The kid turned himself in. Not like we grabbed the wrong guy. He turned himself in. I killed Charlie Kirk. Okay. So until you give me something else, and I appreciate, like, it doesn't sound like they would say the word vehicle. It doesn't sound like he would say my love. I'm like, well, he's insane. So I mean, just give me. I believe the FBI should get to the bottom of it. There are a lot of powerful conservative influencers that you could take out for nefarious and covert reasons. If Israel wanted to take somebody out, I would think it would be Candace, Tucker, like, which is disgusting. I'm going to be very clear. If there
No,
were
yeah, I know what
evil
you're saying.
intentions, right? I think you would go to the people that are the most vocal and the most influential, not the guy that's advocated on your behalf on college campuses for I don't know how many years. It just doesn't, it's nonsensical to me. I don't know what else could potentially be going on if there are multiple actors. I trust the people in charge, like the FBI, to get to the bottom of it in this particular instance, because I don't see a reason for them to cover it up. Now, could I be naive? Possibly.
Yeah, and I think that because you seem like a very rational person. Like, I think rational people would put two and two together and say, to pull off a cover up to this degree is very, very difficult. You have a sheriff deputy next door to the father of the killer. He turned himself into his father. The deputy made a phone call to the sheriff to negotiate the way he would be turned in. So you would have to
Yeah.
have the deputy involved, the deputy chief involved, his dad involved. You have to have the trans person involved that he lives with. Somebody has to, I guess, to have the gun. Somebody had to get him a gun. That's involved. You got all these people that got video footage of Charlie's death, unfortunately. So you
Yeah.
can see on the footage that there's no entry exit. It's just an entry wound. It's like all of those things you would have to manipulate, and that will take months. And then you would have to argue that Donald Trump, whom he loves Charlie. And Charlie actually helped him get elected, or Charlie volunteered with his campaign in 2016 before Charlie was even known. And then Charlie is the only reason, in my opinion, not the only reason, he's one of the major reasons he got elected this time. And he had popularity in 2020. And then we need to win again in 2028. Why would you take out that guy? And then Kesh Patel has always been on our side. Dan Bongino has been on our side. Pam Bunny is all of our people in place. So the biggest Christian conservative martyr of our lifetime loses his life, and somehow we think that our favorite people are going to cover it up. And this is the thing that bothers me about it, is that if the FBI wanted to cover it up, they just can not put out the letter. They wouldn't decide, without any necessity to do so, put out a confession letter to a lover, because they don't need that. They had already arrested him. They can say he said whatever and never show us evidence until the court date.
He confessed to it. You don't need more than his own confession, which is, I couldn't agree with you more. Now, could more come to light? Sure. But based on everything you're saying, I'm reluctant to take the bait on it.
But I want to hear your thoughts on Epstein, because I think of Epstein very similarly. I think Donald Trump is an anomaly, because I feel like he like the grandpa that's not really in the know, because he's the same thing with COVID. Like, I don't think he read the room. He was in his own world, and he didn't know that everybody else didn't think that was a good idea. Vaccines was a good idea. And so this one is, I feel like he's focusing on the left, and he don't really understand what's going on online when it comes to the conspiracies, and also the real anger behind what Epstein did. And it's my personal opinion. But then also, I think it's very possible, because I'm open to both. This guy could be a Mossad, all I know. I have no idea. But I think it is kind of possible that this guy was doing all the things that he was accused of. He went to jail, and somebody ordered a hit from jail, which is how they control the cameras and the guards and everything. And they just killed him. And then that's how they was able to cover it up at the jail. And it don't have anything to do with Mossad or the CIA or them covering up something that may not be. I think the conservatives overplayed their hand. And we've done that in the election, where we go, we got a smoking gun. We got evidence that Trump is going to be, we got people smuggling kids underground, and we, the whole thing that they had.
Yes, I remember
find
that.
It was nothing. And then I think the conservatives were really playing this Epstein thing up, and it may not be as much as people think. Now, that's just my opinion. I'm open to anything, because I have no idea what the real truth is. But what are your thoughts on that?
Have you ever talked to Benny Johnson about this?
I haven't.
Can I recommend you have him on? Because he will lay out a trail of breadcrumbs that is exceptionally convincing and all checks out. I'm going to butcher this, so bear with me. I'll do my best job to recall all of the things that he told me, because I kind of thought the way that you did. And so, oh my God, Brandon, I'm going to mess up the names.
Well,
so
go ahead.
Well, long story is, he ends up creating this trail, or illustrating this trail with Epstein, to a gentleman who had worked for OSS, which was the predecessor of the CIA. This gentleman, I can't remember his name, Barr. I think it's Bill Barr, his father.
Yeah, William Barr's father. Yeah, Bill Barr's father.
Gets him the job at that private school. He has no teaching credentials. He has no education in the topic that he was teaching, which I think was economics. One of the powerful, and by the way, the children of the most powerful people in the world attend this school. He cozies up to some of them. One of them gets him a job in finance. Again, no credentials, no college degree, no background in any of this. Where's the source of his money? Nobody knows. We've never seen where this guy's money comes from. So now the guy who was in the OSS, which was the precursor to the CIA, gets him a job around the most influential people in the world with zero credentials, and then somehow introduces him to Ghislaine Maxwell. And her father had bizarre connections to intelligence. And the way he kind of draws it all out, like, where was the guy's money from? How did he get these jobs? These are bizarre connections. I do think maybe there is an intelligence connection. I'm not suggesting, I've seen everything from CIA, Mossad, KGB, MI6, or British intelligence. I do think maybe there's something there. And in addition, if you look at what happened, I believe, with his first court case, they let him
Yeah, they
off.
gave him a slap on the wrist, and this
Yeah,
was
they
this was like Trump, some people that Trump had in his administration. So kind of like people on our side, and that we elevated, kind of let him off with a slap of hand. But I think we're on the same page with this, because all of that stuff is we're awkward connections. But the question is, what exactly is the cover up? Because you have Trump, and you're
yeah.
like, well, is Trump covering some up? But he's not in the files, so he's not he's
Here's
not
my answer.
implicated.
Okay, here would be my answer to that one. And now we're going to go down the rabbit hole, but this would be my answer. What are we covering up? I mean, we're covering up the fact that intelligence agencies, possibly our own, are leveraging minors to blackmail people of power to pull certain levels of power. That is the conspiracy. There's definitely something there to suggest there's potential truths. If that was the case, I don't think you and I are ever going to find out about this.
Oh yeah, I mean,
If the case is our tax dollars have funded this kind of insanity, I I don't think we're ever finding out about this.
right. And the one thing that, and I agree with you 100%, that could very well be the case. But the thing that gets me the most is the questions that I always ask. And it goes back to the Charlie Kirk conspiracies and all this other stuff. It's like, if they were really trying to pull off this thing, they could have made it to where he never got caught, which means that they'd kill him before he ever went to jail to kill himself, or somebody to kill him in jail. Like, I just find it very interesting, because maybe, just maybe, they're not as smart as they think they are, and they always leave a hole. It's perfect for investigatory documentaries or movies and stuff like that. But you would think, if somebody said this person is working for Mossad, which is probably one of the most dangerous and covert organizations next to our CIA, that they would probably say he can't go to jail, because if he go to jail, he got to stand trial, and if he goes to jail, we're gonna have to kill him in jail. So you would think that we would just kill the guy before he ever go to jail.
You make a great point. I mean, you make a tremendous point.
But we
I
never
don't
know.
know.
We will
It's
never know.
very
That's the
bizarre.
truth.
You
Like, if
make
he
a
was,
tremendous point.
but
Yeah,
that's you get what I'm saying? Like, that's the part that
I
hang
do.
me up. 'Cause I'm like, oh yeah, all this is true. He's definitely involved in all this stuff. I mean, it's no way when nobody know where he got his money at. He was super wealthy. I mean, he flying private. He's not a looker either. It's not like he was a suave, swaggy guy. He had like weird teeth, and he was little and kind of awkward. And Trump kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago because he was creepy. And of course, he had to coerce women, because he wasn't. It didn't look like he had enough game to really get women to want to sleep with him. So he was kind of like an oddball. But you would think that if they were so sneaky and creepy to put together money and trails that you couldn't trace, so he blackmailed the most important people in the world, they would have a contingency plan where they say, if he ever got caught, because they actually have intelligence in the government, if they're ever on to him, we're gonna have an off ramp by
We're gonna take
killing the
him out.
guy. And that's the same thing with Charlie's stuff. It's like, if they're smart enough to create a whole conspiracy around killing Charlie Kirk, they would be smart enough to say, can you have somebody write a script to their lover that makes a lot more sense than this? Or let's not release it at all. Let's not even
Right.
show the weapon. They don't have to show the weapon that he used. They don't have to show that they don't have to show anything. They can just hide it from us and just say, trust us. We have the evidence. Trust us. He communicated and confessed to his lover. Trust us. They can avoid any evidence of impropriety. So
You
when
make a
these,
very good point. You make a great point. I just think there's so much on the other side of Epstein. Like, again, I wish you could talk to Benny, because he'll tell you
I will.
what they found in Epstein's house, tapes that were marked evidence, a photo, a painting of Bill Clinton in the Monica Lewinsky blue dress, which kind of implies, like, I've got your number. All of this different stuff, very bizarre stuff. Pam Bondi saying there's 10,000 hours of tape being caught, on some sort of camera.
Yeah,
And then it's like, no, it was all just him. I totally, completely hear you. You're right. Why didn't they just take him out? But it's so much creepy,
it
weird
is.
stuff on the other side that
It is.
it's the one where I might kind of a little bit entertain it, if you will. Entertain it.
Oh, you said it's one that you would. Yeah, I wish we could.
Little bit.
It's just a couple more things I want to talk about. I'm sorry I took a lot of your time
No, no, no. I
with the
love it.
whole thing, but I got a heart out here. I got to get to another thing that I'm doing, but I really appreciate you coming on and taking your time and being. I would call it being vulnerable because you sharing your thoughts about the show and people they're gonna either love you for it or get mad at you. So I appreciate you coming on my show and sharing it. Where can people find you? On social media, how can they follow your show and the things that you're doing?
The show's called Keeping It Real, and you can find me at jillianmichaels.com. All social handles are Jillian Michaels. I got to get you on my show because I have so much I want to ask you about. So you gotta come on my show.
Well, anytime. So thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Brandon. I appreciate you. Have a great day.